Captain Jake Morrison stared at the flickering holographic display in front of him. The blue light cast strange shadows across his weathered face as the alien message played for the third time. His technician, Corporal Danny Rodriguez, worked frantically at the decoding console, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air in the communications bay. "Captain, I'm getting clearer audio now," Danny said, his voice tight with concentration. The static cleared, and suddenly the room filled with the most heart-wrenching sounds Jake had ever heard. Screaming children, mothers crying for help in a language he didn't understand, but the terror was universal. Explosions thundered in the background, and Jake could hear buildings collapsing. "These are the Zalari people," Danny explained, his hands shaking slightly as he adjusted the controls. "Their colony world is called New Haven. It's a farming planet, Captain. They grow food for half the Outer Rim territories. They've never hurt anyone." Jake felt his stomach twist as he listened to a young voice, probably no older than his own. Daughter back on Earth, sobbing for her parents. The Vorthan hegemony had struck without warning, just like they always did. They swept down on peaceful worlds like vultures, taking everything valuable and everyone useful. Lieutenant Tracy Morgan burst through the communications bay doors, her face flushed from running. "Sir, urgent message from Galactic Command. Council has finished their emergency session." Jake already knew what she was going to say, but he let her speak anyway. "They voted against intervention, didn't they?" "Yes, sir." 47 votes against, only 12 in favor. They say the Vorthans have too many ships, too much firepower. The council members are worried about starting a full-scale war that could spread across the galaxy. Tracy's voice carried barely. Contained anger. They're calling it an acceptable loss. Acceptable loss? Jake's voice rose, and several technicians looked up from their stations. He forced himself to lower his voice, but the fury was still there. Those are innocent people, dying while politicians count votes. Danny's console chirped with another transmission. This time the message was clearer, and they could see grainy video footage. Jake watched in horror as Vorthan soldiers in black armor dragged families from their homes. The aliens were massive, easily 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and faces. Hidden behind menacing masks, they moved with the casual brutality of creatures who had done this countless times before. "Captain, look at this," Danny pointed to his screen. "The Vorthans aren't just conquering the planet. They're loading the people onto transport ships. They're taking them as slaves." Jake's hands clenched into fists. The Vorthan slave trade was legendary throughout the galaxy, whispered about in dark corners but rarely discussed openly. Entire species had vanished into their labor camps. Some said the Vorthans had been doing this for over 1,000 years, building their empire on the backs of stolen lives. "Sir, there's something else," Tracy said quietly. "Intelligence reports suggest the Vorthans don't just use slaves for labor. They conduct experiments, medical research on living subjects. They're trying to create super soldiers by combining different species." The room fell silent except for the hum of machinery, and the distant cries still coming from the alien transmission. Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, men and women who had joined Earth's defense forces to protect humanity and its allies. But they had never faced anything like this before. "Get me Admiral Carter on secure channel, Jake." "Ordered. Priority Alpha clearance." "Sir, that's our highest classification level," Tracy warned. "Are you sure?" Jake walked to the large viewing window that looked out into space. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars he could see, innocent people were suffering, while the galaxy's most powerful leaders did nothing. Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for only 15 years, ever since first contact. Most alien species still saw humans as newcomers, barely advanced enough to leave their home planet. They had no idea what humanity was really capable of. "Tracy, how long would it take our fastest ships to reach the Zalari colony?" "About 6 days at maximum speed, sir. But Captain, we only have patrol ships stationed here. Nothing that could take on a Vorthon battle fleet." Jake smiled grimly. "That's what they think." Admiral Tom Carter stood in the massive briefing room at Luna Station, watching as his captains filed in one by one. The space station orbited Earth's moon, hidden from alien surveillance by advanced stealth technology that the galaxy didn't. even no humans possessed. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the sleek shapes of humanity's secret fleet docked at the station's arms. To any alien observer, these ships would look laughably primitive. The hulls were rough and angular, painted in dull gray metal that seemed crude compared to the smooth, flowing designs of most galactic vessels. But Carter knew better. Inside those plain exteriors lay some of the most advanced technology in the known universe. Captain Bobby Chen was the first to arrive, still pulling on his uniform jacket. His destroyer, the Thunderstrike, had been conducting training exercises in the asteroid belt when the emergency recall came through. Behind him came Captain Rachel Torres from the Nighthawk, her short black hair still damp from the shower. One by one, 12 of humanity's finest ship commanders took their seats around the holographic briefing table. "Gentlemen, ladies," Carter began, his voice carrying the weight of command earned through 30 years of military service. 3 hours ago, we received a distress call from the Zellery colony. They're under attack by Vorthan raiders. The room buzzed with quiet conversation. Everyone knew about the Vorthans, but they were supposed to operate far from Earth's territory. Captain Jimmy Walsh raised his hand. "Sir, isn't the Zellery system under Galactic Council protection?" Carter's expression darkened. The Council voted 47 to 12 against intervention. They've written off an entire planet because they're too scared to fight. Commander Kelly Morrison leaned forward in her chair. She was the youngest captain in the fleet at only 32, but she had earned her position through skill, not politics. "What's our official status, Admiral? Are we acting under Council authority?" "We're acting under human authority," Carter replied firmly. "Earth's government has given us full authorization to respond to the distress call. What the Council doesn't know is that we've been preparing for something like this for years." He activated the holographic display, and suddenly, the room filled with three-dimensional images of the Zellery system. Red dots marked Vorthan ship positions, while blue indicators showed the locations of major population centers on the planet below. Commander Diana Parker studied the tactical readout with professional interest. "Sir, intelligence shows at least 30 Vorthan vessels in the system. Heavy cruisers, battle destroyers, and what looks like a command dreadnought. Our 12 ships are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. On paper, yes," Carter acknowledged. "But remember what those ships really are." Every person in the room smiled at that. To the galaxy, Earth's military used primitive chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. What they didn't know was that human engineers had been secretly studying captured alien technology for over a decade. Every crashed probe, every damaged alien ship that had wandered into Earth's solar system had been carefully taken apart and studied. But humans didn't just copy alien technology. They improved it, Captain. Tony Rodriguez from the Stormbreaker pulled up detailed ship schematics on his personal display. "Sir, our plasma cannon arrays are still showing 98% efficiency. The new targeting computers passed all tests last week. What about the new armor plating?" asked Captain Amy Wilson from the Star Fury. Commander Kevin Brooks answered. From across the table, reactive hull plating performed flawlessly during the simulation runs. "Alien energy weapons that should punch through our hulls will barely scratch the paint." Carter nodded with satisfaction. The secret that Earth had kept from the galaxy was simple, but devastating. Human military technology wasn't primitive at all. It was the most advanced in known space, hidden behind a carefully maintained illusion of backwardness. "There's something else you need to know," Carter continued, his voice becoming grimmer. "Our intelligence reports indicate the Vorthans aren't just conquering the Zellery planet. They're conducting live medical experiments on captured civilians. Men, women, and children are being used as test subjects for biological weapons research." The room fell completely silent. Captain Lisa Anderson was the first to break the quiet, her voice steady but filled with cold anger. "How many civilians are we talking about, sir? Initial estimates suggest over 2 million Zellery have been captured in the first wave of attacks. The Vorthans are loading them onto transport ships for processing at their research facilities." "Captain." Danny Foster stood up slowly, his hands clenched at his sides. "Admiral, with all due respect, why are we still sitting here talking? There are people dying right now while we discuss tactics." Carter looked around the room at the faces of his commanders. These weren't just military officers. They were parents, brothers, sisters, people who understood that somewhere in space, families were being torn apart by monsters who saw other living beings as nothing more than raw materials for their experiments. You're right, Captain Foster. You leave in 1 hour. The human fleet materialized from hyperspace like ghosts stepping into reality. Admiral Tom Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the tactical display light up with enemy contacts. What he saw made his blood boil with rage. Massive Vorthan battleships hung in orbit around the peaceful Zellerie world, their weapons raining destruction on the cities below. Bright flashes of energy lit up the planet's surface, as hospitals, schools, and homes were reduced to rubble. Even from space, Carter could see the fires burning across entire continents. "Admiral Vexstar is hailing us," reported Communications Officer Jenny Park. "He's demanding we withdraw immediately." Carter's jaw tightened. "Put him on screen." The main display flickered to life, showing the grotesque face of the Vorthon commander. Vexstar was typical of his species, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 muscular arms and skin like black leather. His eyes glowed yellow in the darkness of his command bridge, and when he spoke, rows of razor-sharp teeth became visible. "Unknown human vessels," Vexstar's voice was deep and menacing, translated by the ship's computers. "You are trespassing in claimed Vorthan territory. Withdraw now or be destroyed." Carter stepped forward, his voice calm but deadly cold. "This is Admiral Tom Carter of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have exactly 30 seconds to cease fire on civilian targets and surrender, or we will destroy every one of your ships." Vexstar's laugh was like grinding metal. "Foolish humans! Our intelligence reports show your species barely mastered chemical propulsion. You dare threaten the mighty Vorthan hegemony with your primitive toys?" 25 seconds, Carter replied. The alien admiral's eyes narrowed with cruel amusement. "Your 12 little ships against my battle fleet? I have 30 vessels, each one larger and more powerful than anything your backward species has ever built. I will add your crews to my collection of experimental subjects." 15 seconds. "You will make excellent test subjects for our biological weapons research," Vexstar continued, his voice dripping with malice. "Humans appear to have interesting pain responses." "Time's up," Carter said quietly. "All ships, weapons free. Show them what humans are really capable of." What happened next would be remembered throughout the galaxy for generations. The human ship suddenly burst into motion with impossible speed and coordination. Captain Bobby Chen's destroyer. Thunderstrike rolled inverted and dove beneath the Vorthan formation, while Captain Rachel Torres brought the Nighthawk around in a sweeping arc that should have torn the ship apart from gravitational forces. Impossible. Vexter snarled, his confident expression rapidly changing to confusion. "These readings must be wrong. Those ships are moving faster than our most advanced fighters." But it wasn't just their speed that shocked the Vorthons. The human ships moved like they were connected by invisible threads, each vessel anticipating the other's movements with perfect precision. When Captain Kelly Morrison opened fire with her plasma batteries, Captain Tony Rodriguez was already in position to cover her attack run. The first volley of human weapons struck the Vorthon shields and tore through them like they were made of paper. Energy beams that should have barely scratched alien armor instead punched clean through hull plating, leaving massive holes that vented atmosphere and debris into space. "Admiral," screamed a Vorthon officer on Vexstar's bridge. "Their weapons are unlike anything in our databases. Shields are useless against them." Captain Amy Foster's destroyer Stormchaser came screaming past a Vorthan heavy cruiser, her guns blazing. In a matter of seconds, the alien ship's engine section exploded in brilliant white fire, sending the massive vessel spinning helplessly out of control. "How is this possible?" Vexter demanded, his 4 arms working frantically at his control station. "Human technology is centuries behind ours." What the Vorthon admiral didn't understand was that human engineers had spent years studying captured alien technology. But instead of simply copying it, they had improved every system, enhanced every weapon, perfected every defensive measure. The ships that looked primitive on the outside contained the most advanced military Technology in the galaxy, Captain. Danny Foster led the Star Fury in a diving attack on a Vorthan troop transport. His targeting computers locked onto the ships. Weapon systems with impossible accuracy, disabling the vessel without destroying it completely. Inside that transport were thousands of captured Zellery civilians. Foster intended to save every one of them. Commander Lisa Anderson coordinated the boarding operations with military precision that amazed even veteran soldiers. Human Marines, in advanced combat suits, cut through Vorthan airlocks like they were cardboard, moving through enemy ships with speed and efficiency that left their opponents stunned. "Sir, we've secured the first transport ship," reported Marine Captain Kevin Brooks over the radio. "You need to see what we found down here." When Admiral Carter saw the video feeds from the boarding teams, even his experienced military mind was horrified. The Vorthan holding cells contained hundreds of Zellery families, including children, all showing signs of medical experimentation. Some had surgical scars, others had been injected with unknown substances that left them barely conscious. Admiral Captain Brooks continued, his voice tight with controlled rage. "This isn't just slavery. They're using these people as lab rats for biological weapons testing." Carter's expression became stone cold. The Vorthans hadn't just attacked innocent people. They had turned them into subjects for unspeakable experiments. Round him, his bridge crew worked with renewed determination, knowing that every second counted in saving lives. The battle was far from over, but one thing had become crystal clear. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened innocent people in front of humans. The news traveled faster than the fastest starships. Within hours of the Zellery liberation, every communication network in the galaxy buzzed with the same incredible story.
How the humans?
Those primitive newcomers who barely knew how to leave there? The own solar system had just destroyed an entire Vorthan battle fleet without losing a single ship in the gleaming halls of the Galactic Council headquarters. Emergency sessions were called as alien diplomats argued furiously about what to do. The Altarian representative, a tall blue-skinned being with 6 eyes, slammed his fist on the debate podium. He declared, his translator making his alien speech understandable to the mixed crowd. Humanity launched an unprovoked attack on Vorthan forces without council authorization. This could start a war that spreads across the entire galaxy. But in the Outer Rim territories, where the council's protection meant little and Vorthan raids were a constant terror, the reaction was completely different. In cantinas and trading posts, alien workers who had lived in fear of slave raiders for generations raised their drinks and toasted the human fleet. Admiral Tom Carter received the Council's angry demands aboard his flagship as it patrolled the Zellery system. The official message was long and filled with diplomatic language, but the meaning was simple: stop fighting and return to Earth immediately. Carter's response was short and direct. He activated the fleet's communication array and broadcast on every frequency used by ships throughout the galaxy. "This is Admiral Tom Carter of the Earth Defense Fleet." His voice echoed across space, reaching merchant vessels, military patrols, and civilian colonies on 1,000 different worlds. The Galactic Council had a chance to save innocent lives and chose to do nothing. "We answered a call for help that you ignored. As long as there are people crying out for rescue, we'll keep answering them." The message sent shockwaves through alien governments everywhere. Some species cheered, others worried about the implications. But everyone understood that something fundamental had changed in the balance of galactic power. Captain Ryan Brooks was already proving Carter's words weren't empty threats. His task force of 4 destroyers had jumped to the Kepler mining system, where intelligence reports indicated the Vorthans were using thousands of enslaved Kelvari workers to extract rare minerals. The Kelvari were a gentle species, barely 4 feet tall, with soft gray fur and large sad eyes. They had been among the first victims of Vorthon expansion 50 years ago, and their entire civilization had been reduced to forced labor camps scattered across a dozen worlds. "Target acquired," reported Brooks, as his ships dropped out of hyperspace above Kepler 7. Below them, the planet's surface was scarred with massive open-pit mines, and orbital sensors detected at least 20,000 life signs in the labor camps. The Vorthan garrison fleet was caught completely off guard. 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen patrol ships were positioned around the planet, but their commanders had never imagined that anyone would dare attack a hegemony facility. "Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in Vorthan territory," came the predictable challenge from the garrison commander. Brooks didn't bother responding with words. His destroyers opened fire simultaneously, their enhanced plasma cannons punching through Vorthan shields like they weren't even there. Within minutes, 2 of the enemy cruisers were drifting wrecks, and the third was desperately trying to escape. "Deploy marine units to the surface," Brooks ordered. "Priority targets are the guard compounds and administrative centers. Rules of engagement are weapons free for any Vorthan forces, but protect the workers at all costs." Down on the planet's surface, Kelvari workers who had toiled in the mines for decades looked up in amazement as human dropships descended from the sky. Many of them had never seen a human before. They had heard the stories spreading through the underground networks that connected slave populations across the galaxy. Commander Patricia Wells led the ground assault, her Marines moving with deadly efficiency through the Vorthon compounds. The alien guards, used to dealing with defenseless prisoners, panicked when faced with professional human soldiers equipped with advanced weapons and armor. "Control center secured," Wells reported over the radio. "We've got the worker databases and guard schedules. Estimates show nearly 18,000 Kelvari on this planet alone, plus about 3,000 from other species." Meanwhile, halfway across the galaxy, Commander Beth Turner was leading her own mission against a Vorthan processing center in the Rigel system. These facilities were where newly captured slaves were sorted, cataloged, and prepared for shipment to labor camps or research facilities. Turner's squadron included some of humanity's most advanced ships, including the experimental stealth destroyer Shadow Strike. They approached the processing station completely undetected, their advanced cloaking technology making them invisible to Vorthon sensors. "Remember, these facilities will be full of civilians," Turner briefed her team as they prepared for the assault. "Every person in there is someone's family member. We get them out alive." The attack was swift and brutal. Human ships materialized around the space station like ghosts, their weapons already charged and aimed. The Vorthon defenders barely had time to sound an alarm before their weapon systems were destroyed and their shields collapsed. Captain Joey Martinez led the boarding parties into the station, where they found something that made even hardened Marines struggle to keep their composure. Thousands of beings from dozens of different species were crammed into holding cells barely large enough for half their number. Many were injured, all were terrified, and some were so young they couldn't even walk. "My God," whispered Sergeant Linda Park as she opened one of the cells. "Some of these kids can't be more than 5 years old." Back on Earth, President Helen Garcia stood before the cameras in the White House briefing room. She was a former military officer herself, someone who understood the cost of war, but also the price of inaction. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," she began, her words being simultaneously translated into hundreds of alien languages. "For too long, the strong have preyed upon the weak, while those with the power to help have chosen to look away. That ends today." She paused, letting her words sink into audiences across thousands of worlds. "Slavery is now extinct in human space. Any ship, station, or facility engaged in the slave trade will be destroyed. Any government that supports slavery will face the full might of the Earth Defense Fleet. This is not a negotiation or a political statement. This is a promise." In the depths of space, surviving Vorthon commanders tried desperately to adapt to human tactics, but it was hopeless. Humans fought unlike any species the galaxy had ever seen. They struck without warning, coordinated their attacks with impossible precision, and showed no mercy to those who harmed innocent people. "They fight like creatures possessed," reported one shaken Vorthan captain to his superiors. "Our ships, our weapons, our tactics, nothing works against them. They move through our formations like predators hunting prey." Oh, the age of Vorthan dominance was ending, and a new power was rising in the galaxy. Power that had made it clear they would not tolerate the suffering of innocent beings, no matter the cost. The final battle for the Vorthon homeworld began at dawn on what would become known throughout the galaxy as Liberation Day. Admiral Tom Carter stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the most heavily defended planet in Vorthon space grew larger on the main display. This wasn't just another military target. This was the heart of an empire built on suffering, and today it would fall. "Admiral, we're detecting massive defensive installations," reported Captain Kelly Morrison. From her position at the tactical station, orbital weapons platforms, shield generators, and at least 40 warships protecting the planet. Carter nodded grimly. The Vorthon capital world of Vextual was supposed to be unconquerable. For over 800 years, no enemy force had ever penetrated its defenses. The planet's surface bristled with weapons capable of destroying entire fleets, and its underground bunkers could shelter the ruling class for decades during a siege. But the Vorthons had never faced humans before. "All ships begin attack formation Delta," Carter commanded. "Remember, our goal isn't to destroy the planet. We need those leaders alive for trial." What followed was the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Human ships moved through the Vorthon defenses like they were swimming through water instead of fighting a war. Captain Bobby Chen's destroyer punched through the outer perimeter, its weapons systematically destroying defense platforms that had stood guard for centuries. The Vorthon fleet tried to mount a coordinated defense, but their commanders quickly realized they were fighting an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. Human ships anticipated their moves, countered their strategies, and struck with precision that seemed almost supernatural. "Impossible," screamed Fleet Commander Zekmoth, as he watched his most powerful battleship get torn apart by weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate its armor. How are they doing this? Captain Amy Foster answered that question by leading her squadron in a diving attack that destroyed 3 Vorthon cruisers in less than 2 minutes. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, each vessel covering the others while striking at exactly the right moment to cause maximum damage down on the planet's surface. Colonel Danny Thompson was leading the largest military operation in human history. 50,000 Marines in advanced combat suits descended from orbital transports, their mission clear: capture the Vorthon leadership alive and secure all evidence of their crimes. The capital city of Vexthul was a monument to Vorthon power, with towering spires that reached toward the sky and massive buildings carved from black stone. But it was also a fortress, with automated defense systems and underground tunnels designed to protect the ruling class from any threat. "Remember, we want prisoners, not bodies," Thompson radioed to his battalion commanders as they advanced through the city's streets. "These creatures need to face justice for what they've done." The Vorthon ground forces fought with desperate fury, knowing that capture meant facing trial for centuries of atrocities. But they were no match for human military technology and training. Marine squads moved through the city like ghosts, their advanced armor protecting them from Vorthon weapons while their own guns cut through enemy positions with deadly efficiency. Captain Lisa Anderson led the assault on the Central Command Complex, where intelligence suggested the highest-ranking Vorthon officials were hiding. Her Marines breached the building's defenses using shaped charges that the aliens had never seen before, creating perfect entry points while avoiding damage to the structure's interior. "We've got movement on the lower levels," reported Sergeant Tony Rodriguez as his team advanced through the building's corridors. "Looks like they're trying to destroy computer records." "Stop them," Anderson ordered. "We need those files as evidence." Battle for the command center was brief but intense. Vorthon guards fought to the last being to protect their leaders, but human Marines were relentless. When the shooting stopped, Colonel Thompson himself walked into the deepest bunker beneath the building, where the most powerful beings in the Vorthon hegemony cowered in terror. Supreme Leader Vexcalar was ancient even by Vorthon standards, his forearms withered with age and his yellow eyes dim with fear. For 8 centuries he had ruled an empire that stretched across dozens of star systems, built entirely on the suffering of enslaved beings from hundreds of different species. "You cannot do this," he whispered, as human soldiers placed restraints on his arms. "The Galactic Council will never allow you to put me on trial." Thompson's smile was cold as winter. "The Galactic Council doesn't get a vote anymore." The trials that followed were broadcast live across every communication network in the galaxy. Beings on thousands of worlds watched as former slaves testified, about the horrors they had endured. Kelvari workers spoke about families torn apart in the mines. Zellery farmers described watching their children taken for medical experiments. Dozens of other species shared stories of brutality that had continued for generations. The evidence was overwhelming. Computer records showed detailed accounts of torture, murder, and experimentation on living beings. Video files contained footage of atrocities so horrible that many networks had to edit them before broadcasting. Throughout it all, the Vorthan leaders showed no remorse. They claimed they had the right to treat inferior species however they chose, that the strong naturally dominated the weak, and that their actions were justified by their superior technology and military power. The galaxy watched in amazement, as these creatures, who had terrorized entire star systems for centuries, were reduced to pathetic beings begging for mercy they had never shown to others. President Helen Garcia addressed the trials from Earth. Her words carried to every inhabited world in known space. Today, we have proven that no being, no matter how powerful, is above justice. The age of predators ruling over the innocent is finished. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chambers, an emergency session was underway. The council chairman, elderly being from the peaceful Centauri system, stood before representatives from over 200 worlds. The council formally recognizes Earth as a major galactic power, he announced, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. We request that humanity join our peacekeeping forces and help us maintain order throughout the galaxy. Admiral Carter entered the chamber wearing his dress uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. Behind him walked representatives from every species that had been freed from Vorthon slavery. The symbolism was clear. Humanity didn't fight alone. They fought for everyone who couldn't fight for themselves. We accept your invitation, Carter said, his voice echoing in the chamber. But under one condition that is not negotiable, never again will cries for help go unanswered. When innocent beings are threatened, humanity will respond with everything we have. The chamber fell silent as alien diplomats considered the implications of those words. Some worried about human military power, others were grateful for protection they had never received before. Across the galaxy, the message was received loud and clear. On the Outer Rim worlds where slavery had been common, transport ships began releasing their captives. Mining operations shut down their forced labor camps. Research facilities destroyed their biological weapons programs. The age of galactic slavery was over. The age of human protection had begun, and everyone knew that humanity kept its promises.